Welcome along, everyone, to another Toon Under podcast, the original and best Southern Hemisphere podcast for all things Newcastle United. Joining me today for a bit of a rant, I'm guessing, because of the way things panned out for us at stupid o'clock this morning. I think it was a 3:30 a.m. kickoff against Liverpool for us. Dimi's joining me from down in Melbourne. This is going to be, we're going to try and keep this short. We're not going to sort of do the usual match review as such, because we've got some key points that obviously we need to have a chat about. One eye on next weekend, the big cup final. Dimi, not a great morning for Newcastle fans. You had a bit of a crap Monday morning, NFL wise, in the Super Bowl as well. Luckily, the victory pulled one out for you yesterday, so at least you have something to smile about this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday night winning the derby was sensational. Got home around midnight, had a couple hours sleep, and then was ready for the Toon. I was quite relaxed pre-game, thinking I'm confident in that we're going to get a result, confident that we're going to perform well. And the first 9 minutes went pretty well, and then for about 12 minutes, which we'll discuss, anything that could go wrong went wrong. And you're watching the game at 4:45 a.m. in Melbourne, thinking, we're 2-0 down. We're down to 10 men. What the fuck am I doing with my life? But I stuck it out, and the boys, as we'll discuss, they also stuck it out. So yeah, it could be better, but onwards and upwards.
I'm actually impressed. I got up at 3:30. I was awake because I couldn't sleep as usual. Once you wake up at that time in the morning and you know there's a game on, there's just no chance you're getting back to sleep. So I started watching it. I think I must have switched off at about the 60th minute mark. Went back to bed. Thought, nah, I'm just getting some sleep after this, and watch the highlights and the replay in the morning. So yeah, look, hugely important game for us, and I think I want to ask your opinion first of all, because obviously I think everyone knows it's gone a little bit pear-shaped, the game itself. We've lost 2-0. We had our goalkeeper sent off for a bit of a brain fart moment, and we'll discuss all of these moments in a minute. But the start of the game, in terms of the build-up, huge war flags display, as usual, doing absolutely fantastic job. Apparently there was a bit of a kerfuffle with the sound system for some of the pre-planned events for Sit Bobby Robson's would-be 90th birthday. So, and then obviously the sad news that Christian Atsu's body was found. So, yeah, his wife and his kids were at the game as guests, and obviously the minute's silence turned into a minute's applause, which was good to see. Everyone was singing his name and singing the Christian Atsu song. What did you make of the build up to the game? And do you think what I want to know is, do you reckon that had any effect on the actual outcome of the game, where there was so much going on, and obviously with cup finals on the horizon as well? Do you think that's kind of maybe taken the eye off the ball a little bit for the players?
I see what you're saying. There's a lot of distractions. I mean, obviously, the celebration for Sir Bobby's would-be 90th birthday is distraction enough. But then when you wake up in Saturday morning UK time to find out that one of your ex-players' body has been found dead in the earthquakes in Turkey, it does put everything into perspective, and obviously would hit home hard on a fair few of that squad who've played with that too. So that definitely is tough, and you add in the fact there's a big cup final and no one wants to get injured or suspended. We'll talk about Popey, but no one wanted to miss the game next week. So there's a lot going on. But we'll go through it, but the first 10 minutes, I thought we started really well, and I thought it didn't distract us in the opening 9 or 10 minutes in terms of how we were pressing, how we were attacking. It was sort of a couple of moments of, 3 moments of lapses of concentration, and against even a Liverpool team who's not been good this season, especially away from home. They've been awful, but they've still got world-class players, and world-class players with a bit of space and with a bit of confidence are going to punish you. So that's unfortunately what happened to us.
Yeah, so I mean, the first goal, obviously, I mean, as you said, we started the game really well. Miggy had a pretty decent opportunity to stick us 1-0 up. Yeah, I mean, those are the sorts of things that we came to deride Miggy for, in some respect, where he was never scoring those sorts of chances, and we wanted those sorts of chances to be put away by any player in the first team. And he's gone on his little purple patch before the World Cup break. do you? I mean, he's kind of like he has scored since we've been back playing, but you know he still has that little lapses of concentration or just not that cutting edge that you really want. But that could have been huge for us to go in like to get that 1 goal advantage so early in the game.
Yeah, especially at home, crowds up for it. An early goal would have really threw the cat amongst the pigeons. And even when Maxi put him through, you just looked at Miggy. He didn't look like someone who was going to score. I mean, Allison did really well. He got out off his line really quickly, but even his first touch and his demeanor didn't look like someone who had that confidence that he had perhaps a couple of months ago. I remember the goal he scored against Southampton where he sort of waited for the defender to fly by and calmly slotted the ball past him. I think he's definitely not in that same mindset. And clearly he didn't put it away. And you have to give credit to Allison as well. But yeah, it was a big moment and probably was the big chance we had early on, especially to take advantage before all hell broke loose at about 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then I mean, it's the sort of start you really want with the crowd that were clearly up for the game. They were making a lot of noise. They were definitely getting behind the team. It was not to be. Liverpool breaks pretty much for the first time in the game after about 13 minutes or so, sort of 14 minutes, I think it was, something like that, and literally tore us apart. Now, my viewpoint of that whole goal, firstly, the ball through was great, don't get me wrong, but Nunez has so much luck on that ball. That could have bounced anywhere. And it just like happens to like bounce off his chest, bounce onto his knee.
Perfectly,
he takes it through. Perfect position for him to take a shot on. I mean, it's one of those things where you go like, yeah, fair enough. There's not much you could do about that because it's just pure luck. But the defending was absolutely atrocious. Kieran Trippier, not for the first time in a few games as well. He's been guilty of being the one to play players onside that's cost us goals over the last few games. This is a couple of times he's been guilty of that now. Look, great finish by Nunez. I'm not going to take that away from him, but as good as Trippier has been for us, and as much as everyone kind of derides St. Maximin and Miggy and all the other players who are not playing well, Kieran Trippier, we need to discuss the fact that he is being a little bit sloppy in terms of his positioning for some of the goals that we're conceding at the moment. And I don't think anyone in the team's above criticism. I'm not going to go overboard about it because he is absolutely fantastic for us. And he is pretty much like the ultimate captain for that side right now in terms of his leadership on the pitch. But, his free kicks have not been great of late. His delivery hasn't been spot on. He's been guilty of giving the ball away in some bad positions in some of the games. And he's cost us a few goals by being the one that's played the attacker on side. And that's pretty much what it came down to on this one with Nunez. Is that how you see it? And do you think, or you hope that Trippier is kind of getting all this out of his system because he's got his eye elsewhere at the moment, maybe? Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Potentially, look, on that goal specifically, I mean, it's a good finish in the end by Nunez, but you can't tell me that he meant to control the ball and onto his stomach and the ball fell fluid. He got lucky. Let's just call it what it is. He got lucky.
Especially given what we've seen from him so far this season.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it was a great ball by Alexander-Arnold, but there's no way that he should be in that much space. You could see at halftime on Optus they were going through the goal and how it happened. For some reason, Trippier was trying to cover, I think it was Robertson on the far left-hand side, and he left a gap between Cher and himself just way too big. And sort of Arnold just popped the ball over the top, and he got lucky with the touch. But once you get lucky with the touch, when you're about 20 yards from goal, one-on-one with the keeper, it's more likely than not it's going to be a goal. And obviously it fell perfectly for him when he scored. But definitely Trippier, you're right. He has made a few mistakes lately. He has been guilty of losing concentration and sort of losing his positioning. It's something to be wary of. Obviously, he's never going to be dropped, and he shouldn't be dropped.
No,
he's the captain. He's the leader. He's been superb for us. But it's definitely something to watch, and definitely something that we need to hone in on this weekend, because obviously we'll get to the preview later in the week with our shows. But there's definitely going to be something that Manchester United are going to focus on, and and potentially you'll see, instead of Nunes making the run, it could be Rashford on that inside channel. And if you let Rashford go goal side, the form that he's in, that's
for sure,
good night.
for
So
sure.
it's definitely something that Trippier's got to be aware of, and I'm sure he is. He's a professional, but definitely I think he was at fault for that first goal.
Yeah, and then before we know it, we're 2-0 down to another sloppy bit of defending. Now there was some issues with the build up to the second goal, where again it was probably like their second foray forward, and you know they've literally done nothing else in the game but go forward twice and score 2 goals. That both were pretty sloppy defending on our part, which is so like not in character for this side right now. I mean, we're still sitting there with the best defensive record in the league. You know, we're not conceding those sloppy goals. It's normally been like this worldy out of nowhere. That's been the only way we could be beaten. And yeah, so look, whether or not it's tired minds, whether or not this mind's focused on other things, as we've already said, who knows? But the second goal, I think, was probably a little bit of they're used to Bruno being in that spot, in kind of just in front of the defenders. And Byrne wasn't really sure where to go because he had 2 players that he was supposed to be marking. St. Maximin was kind of marking his player. Someone else went out from the Liverpool line and kind of really seemed to kind of throw our players off. And Trippier and Shah, I think it was, were seemingly caught in 2 minds about who was supposed to be picking up who, and they were kind of almost ball watching a little bit. And, you know, great ball through. And again, it's like it's a nice ball, but you should be defending those things better, and you should be playing that line better, because again, it was a really borderline offside call, and it was guilty from players not pushing out quick enough. How did you see the second goal anyway?
Yeah, I think the second goal, the problem started, I think, when one of the I'm not sure the name of the young Liverpool midfielder, but he turned Longstaff inside out and sort of drove forward. And like you said, with Bruno not there, we don't really have a natural number 6. And I mean, Longstaff's been pulverizing, but he's been, for his ability, I think he's been very good this season for us, but he's not the quickest player. And if you get him caught in transition, he can get found out. So that was the first problem. But I just don't understand how we can give Mo Salah that much time near the box. I mean, he's world class. His left foot is magical, and he put it on a dime, and Gakpo scored a nice goal. But Sharon, again, that right-hand side of our defence, Sharon, Trippier weren't on the same page, and we didn't push out quick enough. We weren't in sync. And again, all it takes is 1 or 2 lapses of concentration when you're playing world-class players like Salah is. I mean, Gakpo had a great World Cup for the Dutch. These guys are world-class players. They don't need much space to score a goal. And like you said, he was only a bee's dick on side. So even half an inch closer to Salah, he would have been caught offside and lived to fight another day. But again, it's those moments that we're losing that concentration, which we weren't previously, and it's costing us. And I mean, we can't really complain defensively because we've been so good this season. I think it's the only time we've copped 2 goals in the Premier League since the last Liverpool game. I don't think we've copped 2 goals in a game since then. So, and especially 2 goals so early in a game. I can't remember a time we've copped 2 goals so early in a game. So definitely an unusual one for us, and hopefully it is the bad one. Maybe we need it out of the way before the big final. I mean, you don't want to be making the same mistakes again in the final.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to ask you about that because it's something that Lee brought up on the group chat earlier on today with potentially bonuses coming of that performance and that defeat in terms of being a kick up the arse. But we'll come back to that in a minute, and just a little touch on the final on the horizon. We will be doing a full blown sort of a final preview for the Carabao Cup. So keep an eye out for that one. I think all of us are due on board for that one. So it's going to be a packed house. Jack's going to lead that one. So looking forward to that one anyway. Getting a bit excited now, a little bit nervous after that result, has to be said. But yeah, and then literally the 13 minutes of madness culminates in Nick Pope, not for the first time in the game either, running out to try and intercept a ball. Managed to kind of head the ball away in the first time that he did it and get away with it. The second time he went to the ground, clearly mistimed everything. Looks as on the replay like he had his eyes closed when he came in contact with the ball anyway. And then, so yeah, look, he ended up handling the ball. It wasn't even like borderline outside his box. He's closer to the halfway line than he is to his box. So not the ideal moment to kind of lose one's head, shall we say. And then, yes, obviously, look, he's gone off with his red card. Dubravka's come on. I feel really bad for Elliot Anderson, who got his first start for the club, his first ever start in the Premier League, and
against Liverpool,
cut short against Liverpool, and it's cut short just because like Pope loses his head, gets sent off, and we have to have a bit of a reshuffle. But you know, what was Pope thinking to come out that far, and why didn't he just put his foot through it?
Great question. Don't think he was thinking. Don't think he was thinking, to be fair. And you can just see it happening in slow-mo. The ball was sort of going away from Pope and he kept getting closer and the ball wasn't really bouncing to the level of a header. And you're thinking, Popey, what are you doing? And then it's one of those reflex moments. As soon as he's sort of missed the ball with his head and the ball's under him, reflex, his hands go there, touches the ball, and the referee deems goal-scoring opportunity, red card. Hard to argue it's a goal-scoring opportunity. There was, I think, Longstaff or one of the other defenders was sort of in the vicinity, but it's hard to argue that it's not a goal-scoring chance with if Salah gets that ball first, he's clean through on goal, and Longstaff
it was weird though because Salah looked like he'd kind of backed out of the challenge, thinking that Pope was just going to go through it.
He's going nowhere near it. He's going nowhere near it.
He'd actually pulled out of it. So yeah, Pope kind of probably could have gotten away with it had he stayed on his feet and just cleared the ball like normal. But no, it was just a complete moment of madness. I've seen excerpts of Eddie Howe's post-match interview. He's apparently suggesting that he felt it was a harsh red card and it should have just been a yellow card. There's no word whether or not they're actually going to appeal it. You know, the fact is that now rules Nick Pope out of the final, with Martin Dubravka having played for Manchester United already in the Carabao Cup, is now cup tied. So we will be at our backups of backups keepers at the moment. Darlow's out on loan. There is no release. There is no recall clause in that loan deal. So we are literally down to either Loris Karius to get his first start for the club in the final, which would be an absolute fantastic story for him, given he was probably scapegoated a bit for his messing up in the Champions League when he played for Liverpool. I hope he comes in. I'm backing him entirely. I think he is a good keeper. I think, as I said, I think he's been hounded out of Liverpool a little bit because of one mistake. Yes, in a high-profile game, but you know the reality is, if you're a goalkeeper and you make one little mistake, usually it ends up in a goal. If you're a forward and you make that mistake, you can do it time and time again. And that was Miggy should have scored. Callum Wilson, we'll get to that. He should have scored. And yes, we're going to criticize them, but it's never going to result in that bad publicity like a goalkeeper will get if he ends up conceding a goal from a bad mistake. The other option I think we've got is Gillespie.
Mark Gillespie.
Mark Gillespie. No, to be honest, I'm not sure I'd feel any less anxious with either of those in goal. I'm hoping Karius gets the nod. Sure. But yeah, look, you and I both actually agree. I think Karius is not a bad keeper, and I'm fully on board with him being in goal, and I'm not too stressed about that if that's the option that Howe goes for. You're feeling the same?
Yeah, I think we've actually very lucky because we're, like you said, we're at goalkeeper number 4 in the squad. Pope's out. Dubravka's number 2, he's cup tied. Darlow's number 3, he's on loan. So Karius is actually number 4. I think you would not find a number 4 goalkeeper in the world who has as much experience as Karius, who's played in as bigger games as Karius. So, albeit his last big game that he played for an English club didn't end too well against Real Madrid, where he made those 2 howlers. But I mean, you want someone who's at least had experience. Gillespie hasn't. I wouldn't even know what it looked like, to be honest, when he walked down the street. So I don't see him playing at Wembley. But Karius has that experience, and that is very important in big games. And like you said, it's it's not like we're playing a 16-year-old kid who's never played any games professionally and he's going to be shit scared at the moment. You don't think Karius is going to be as experienced, and with the key for us is going to be the rest of the team. I mean, if our defense is on point and midfield's on point, Karius is not going to be a spectator, but Karius is not going to have to be the world beater. If Karius has to be a world beater for us to win the game, we're probably not going to win the game. That just means Man United's dominating, and there's countless chances. Even the games this year where we've won and Popey's made 1 or 2 saves, we've more or less dominated the game and haven't been battered from pillar to post. So as long as we're not battered from pillar to post, I trust Karius can make 1 or 2 saves when called upon to keep us in a bit. In terms of that, just quickly on that appeal, I think the only recourse we potentially might have is I was reading up on the FA website. It's depending on whether the referee in his match report has actually included that there was a covering defender or not. So if the referee has missed that and said there's no covering defender, it's a denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity. The one grounds for appeal we would have, whether you believe it or not, is the fact that there is a player somewhat in the vicinity who could have cleared the ball. So on that point, we potentially could have an appeal. And if that's the case, the appeal could be heard post next weekend and he may be able to play. But I'd find that I'd be shocked, to be fair, if we go down that path and that has happened on the match report. But that is the only sort of 1% chance, if you call it that Pope is allowed to play next week. I mean, it is what it is. He's made a mistake. We've got to move forward, like you said, with Karius. And I think we're lucky enough we've got keeper number 4 who's an experienced goalkeeper and he's not just some bum off the street.
No, for sure. And I think it's, previous seasons, we probably would have been down to an untried teenager or something off the bench. But yeah, so at least we've got experience.
There was a Chelsea game a few years ago. I think, I can't remember if it was Krul went off or someone went off, and Jack Ornwick, I think his name was, came on, an 18-year-old kid, and he looked rubbish. I mean, he looked really, really raw, and I think we ended up holding on against Chelsea, winning 2-1. He came on, it was 2-0 up, and we ended up holding on to a 2-1 win. That's the last thing you want, a reserve goalkeeper who is a true youth player who doesn't have that experience. So Karius ticks
and especially
that box,
in the final, because the pressure is going to be on as well. And
huge.
If you haven't got any experience, then the last thing you want is all the pressure on your shoulders as well. Yeah. Look, it is what it is. We go down to 10 men. Not the ideal start to the game. It's like 13 minutes gone. Or the
20 minutes in,
madness,
disaster.
like 20 odd minutes on the clock, and 2-0 down to 10 men. And it came out of nowhere because of the good start that we had. And what I was actually really impressed with was when we reshuffled and St. Maximin was having some really good runs down the left-hand side. We were kind of targeting Alexander-Arnold down that left-hand side for Maxi to run that. He shifted kind of more centrally after the reshuffle. And I was actually really impressed with his ability to not only create that counter-attack opportunity that we kind of came to understand was his game under Bruce, because effectively everyone else was just playing behind the ball, and the whole game plan was get it to Maxi and hope that he does something. He was taking the ball a little bit deeper. He was taking players on. He was dribbling the ball well. Even when he got the ball, he was still getting loads of defenders closing him down, and he still managed to kind of create some half chances. Seemed to link up really well with Isak as well, which I thought was really good signs. Isak had a couple of nice runs with the ball, obviously starting to feel a little bit more comfortable sort of in the squad and what his role and everything is now, which was good. The rest of the team didn't really add a lot, like Miggy and Trippier doing their usual link up down the right-hand side. But we didn't give up. We still gave as good as we got in the rest of that first half. And the big thing for me was that the crowd could have easily turned. The crowd could have easily lost interest as much as we did when we were on the group chat going, well, this is screwed. It's like why even bother now? But they kept on behind the players, and they gave everything they could to support the players, which was really good to see, I thought. But how did you see the rest of that half playing out? We didn't create any real clear-cut chances, but we certainly threatened their goal. And we certainly weren't under pressure ourselves.
Yeah, we weren't on despite what one of the co-commentators, Jim
Yeah,
Bedlin, made you to believe. Liverpool weren't back to their best. They weren't dominant. We looked very solid. As I said, once we did that, as you said, once we did that reshuffle and we got into shape and Maxi sort of played off Isaac up front with Isaac, we did cause some problems on the counter attack. And I mean, Maxi ended up hitting the crossbar. I think Allison made a save off a shot. They hit the crossbar. Dan Burn hit the crossbar with a header. I think that was a decent chance. So we were actually the ones creating the better chances towards the end of the first half. And if we nicked a
Shah
goal,
had a clear header from a corner as well that he put wide.
yeah. So we were creating chances, and we weren't afraid that we were going to get run over. And obviously, supporters, we thought 2-0 down, 10 men. You're thinking Liverpool's going to score 6 or 7 here, and our confidence is just going to be completely rooted by next week. But it wasn't like that at all. We weren't wide open at the back, and you have to give credit to Eddie Howe and the way he was able to reshuffle the squad, and the team was great. I think we probably deserved the goal, to be fair, before half time. We had enough, I think, enough
chances,
half decent openings that could have made the game interesting at 2-1, even with 10 men. But yeah, definitely we didn't go into our shells, and I thought we were fantastic with 10 men for the rest of the half.
Yeah, for the players to show that kind of mettle when you have that kind of short period where the game effectively should just be away from you and you're not getting back into it. For them to give everything they did, I think was probably showing us that the team spirit's still there and the effort and the determination is still there. That was before Eddie Howe could talk to them at halftime as well to get them back reshuffled. So the fact that they took that sort of on the chin, if you like. I mean, I was watching that and sort of shades of Aston Villa when we had players having punch-ups on the ground and Stephen Taylor gets sent off for a shot by a sniper at moment. And, it was one of those, like, this, anything that, as you said, anything that could go wrong went wrong in that short period of time. And you kind of just thinking, well, that's it, that's gone. It's like, this is a team that hasn't been playing well. We had a clear opportunity here to kind of get another few points on the board, build that cushion again for that 4th spot. And it's kind of just gone away from you in such a short period of time. But look, we came back out in the second half. We've played well again. We had a little bit of a shuffle of some players. So Callum Wilson came on, Gordon came on. It didn't create that spark that I thought we maybe would have gotten from those players coming on. But you're playing with 10 men still. We created some chances again in the second half, and none more so than Callum Wilson's effort, where it was such a tame shot put through on goal, basically kicks it into Allison. What did you make of that chance? Because to me, it was kind of at that point where, look, if we can score one goal, we're probably back into this, because that's going to give the crowd a lift. The players are going to have that belief. But, Callum Wilson's probably the best opportunity, and none of it was just falling our way in this game. So, what did you make of the goal itself, the goal chance itself?
It was huge. I mean, I think they lost the ball in the midfield, and Gordon broke. It was a 3-on-2. I think, I can't remember who he had on his right, but Wilson was wide open on the left. And you're thinking Callum Wilson, should be bread and butter for him, or really for any striker. That's one-on-one, edge of the box. Allison's off his line. It needed a bit of a chip. It was a weird finish. I mean, you're right. It was a tame finish. He was sort of nonchalant, just passed it. Thought, I'll just slot this in, but it needed a bit more lift. And you were hoping that Wilson would put that one in, because you're right. It would have given the crowd a big lift with about 15, 20 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Who knows what would have happened? I mean, Liverpool might have stepped it up and we're done. But 2-1 down, you never know. 2-0 was a dangerous scoreline, even though you got 10 men. So it was a massive chance, and it just proven, even with 10 men, we created such a great chance. There was also earlier in the half, I think Cher had his header earlier in the half, or Isaac had a shot that was just over the bar as well. So there was a couple of chances where we were creating that Liverpool were having to deal with us. It wasn't just Liverpool had 90% of the ball and we weren't going over the halfway line. We were picking our moments to attack, and yeah, that Wilson chance was huge.
Yeah, you kind of need to take those when they come around in those sorts of games, unfortunately. So this is something that I think has been building for a while. How worried are you at our lack of goal scoring at the moment, because it is starting to become that sort of elephant in the corner of the room that really does need addressing at some point, because we are struggling to score goals. We're not scoring from corners, despite the amount of corners we have and the height in the side that we have. We seem to be either not creating the clear-cut chances or fluffing the chance when we get them. How much is that going to sort of compound the more it goes on, and it's going to become that psychological barrier for the players at some point?
I mean, goal scoring is all about confidence, and you can tell that a lot of players in the team are short on confidence in front of goal. Miggy, we spoke about before. Callum Wilson, he scored against West Ham a couple of weeks ago, but he also missed 2 great chances against West Ham, so he's not at his sharpest. Isak hasn't scored for a few games. Maxi hasn't scored for a long time. So there's not really anyone who's full of confidence in front of goal, and we are creating I'm going to keep coming back to the fact that we are creating the chances, and law of averages, hopefully the law of averages get to us next Sunday and we score 4 against Man United and we lift the cup. But law of averages say you're going to obviously get some luck and you're going to score some goals maybe when you don't deserve to, but when you do deserve to score goals, it might be against you. But sometimes those things do have a way to even out. And at the start of the season, we were scoring absolute belters. I mean, there was probably about 10 or 12 goal of the season contenders for us in the first half of the season. We were scoring cracking goals. It wasn't just tap-ins every week. So that was going to come down a little bit, and there has been a drop-off in terms of our goal scoring, which is a huge issue. But we are still creating the chances, and I'm going to keep hanging my hat on the fact that we are creating chances. It's not like we're not getting any sights of goal. Yesterday, I know everyone hates the expected goals stat, but yesterday we had a very similar expected goals to Liverpool. I think it was 2 point something compared to Liverpool, who was maybe 2.3 or 4, maybe one point ahead of us. So it was very close in terms of what the quality of chances we created, and obviously they got more quality in front of goal and they took their chances. We didn't. But as long as we're creating the chances, I'm going to be confident that it's going to turn around. And I think it might take, again, like it did against Fulham, a bit of luck for us where someone gets sent off in the opposition, or we score a deflected goal. Something happens where there's a bit of luck our way, and then the floodgates open. And I think that's what's going to take. And hopefully that's next week when Bruno shoots from 40 yards and it takes a big nick off one of their defenders, and we all wheel away celebrating.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I guess the thing is, it's it's a big game next weekend. Obviously, it can't be in the back of players' minds that, oh well, hang on, this is I don't want them to feel like the pressure's there because we haven't scored, we can't score, and when they get the chance, they're not going to take it. And to me, that's the big worry. Is just that they need to believe that at some point it's going to come. And yeah, look, the likes of Isak, he's been out injured. Maxi's been out injured. They're kind of just working their way back up into form. And it was never going to be easy when you're playing against you're a man light in the game. So the chances have probably got even more pressure on them. So look, let's hope that they get a few of those lucky bounces go their way for a change, because I think we're probably overdue for some of that luck that Liverpool seem to get with a couple of theirs, despite the bad defending as well. So yeah, look, I guess I can't fault the players' attitude for this game. I can't fault the drive and the determination. It was a short period of complete and utter madness that effectively sealed the game quite early on. Disappointing that we didn't score. I felt our overall play probably deserved it. So I'm going to ask, before we have a bit of a touch on some scope for next weekend, just while we're here, do you have a man of the match? Because it's going to be a pretty slim pickings from that monumental sort of underwhelming performance.
I do, and I think it's a very important moment, I think, and potentially could be huge for us next week. And I think Maxi was the best player on the pitch. I mean, maybe besides Allison made some cracking saves for Liverpool. He was very good as well. There wasn't one standout Liverpool player, but for us, Maxi was superb. And I think it just shows to me with St. Maximin, he needs that big occasion or bright lights game to really show his stuff. We saw it early in the season against Manchester City. He really turned it on and he was the best player in the park. And that's when they've got De Bruyne on the pitch, Haaland. He was clearly the best player in the park that day. Today, again, I mean, Salah's on the pitch. You got Gapco, you got Nunes, Firmino. I mean, these are big players. And again, for me, Maxi was the best player, the best attacking player on the pitch. So I think that's only going to benefit us heading into next week with a St. Maximin full of confidence again and got that bit of spark about him. He felt like today he had that bit of spark when he was dribbling. He didn't have that for some reason in the last few weeks. I mean, it may be match fitness. He hasn't played for a long time, but he felt like today he really believed when he was on the ball that he was going to do something, and he was putting Liverpool players on the back foot. So I think a fit and firing Maxi could be a secret weapon for us next week. And I think in terms of man of the match, yeah, he was clearly BOG for me.
No, for sure. I think he gets my vote as well. It's he seemed to be kind of almost back to the Maxi of old, where he's willing to take players on, but is tracking back and he's doing his off the ball sort of pressing of players. Look, he's never going to be a Joe Linton in terms of that huge midfield enforcer, but as long as he does his job in terms of, doesn't just let his player like waltz off into their offensive half, then that's all you can kind of ask of him, as long as he is providing that spark going forward, which he absolutely did in this game. It was nice to see him he's been putting some really nice crosses in as well. He's been linking, as I said, look, he linked up really well with Isak as well. I think there's a couple of times where both of them probably still not quite on the same wavelength, where they kind of held off passing the ball to the other player a little bit too long, and then the chance had kind of almost gone. But look, that's going to take time because they haven't really played much game time together. So the more they get to sort of train with each other and then the more game time they get, then the more they'll have that understanding, and hopefully we get the benefit of that kind of clicking into place next weekend. So yeah, look, not the ideal build up to a cup final, it has to be said. Losing your number one keeper, who has been absolutely superb for us. I'm not, as we've said, not too stressed about Karius coming back in for a final game. He is experienced enough, but Lee brought up a really good point this morning in the group chat, where could this end up being that spark where, like the Spurs game last season where we got tonked, and it kind of really helped to settle the side and really focus them, and they came out the next run of games and were just absolutely unstoppable. So first part I want to ask you is, do you think that this could be that kick up the arse that maybe they need, and just to be able to concentrate, or is it literally just a case of, look, we've got that game out the way? That I tweeted this out earlier on today, where, look, I just wanted that game done, and that was a big distraction. The cup final is a big distraction. We need to focus on the cup final now, and we've got no other excuses. We've got no other games. We can literally just go all in on that game, and we haven't been that usual high intensity, high press side of late. So what I'm hoping is that a lot of that is mainly down to players wanting to keep themselves, and they don't want to get sent off. They don't want to get injured. They've all got that cup final, and especially players like Longstaff, Dan Burn, Trippier. These are players who probably don't have a lot of cup finals left in them, if at all. They're all getting older, or they're all desperate to play for Newcastle in terms of Longstaff and Burn. They want to play in this. They're wanting to be those heroes in the cathedral on the hill when they come back, and there's just like a million people out in the streets and nobody can move. They're obviously local lads. They support the team. They want to be a part of that. And they want to be a part of that history. But you've got to think that some of the older players as well, they're saying, look, how many chances are we going to get for another cup final, get some silverware? So they're obviously going to be wanting to be keen to be out there as well. I'm hoping that that's the case, and that the players have kind of just been a little bit distracted by the cup final, and that they can all just go out there and leave everything on the pitch. Do you see the distractions there? Because obviously it is a big occasion for the club, for the fans, and the players have got to have been feeling this, because it's all anyone's talking about whenever you get Newcastle mentioned in a conversation for weeks now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, ever since the Southampton game, which was probably 3 weeks ago now, it doesn't matter who we've been playing on the weekend. Everyone's been talking about either how to get tickets, how to get to London, how are we going to go on the day, what a weekend it's going to be. It's all about the cup final, and it's hard not to focus on that as players, especially like you said, Dan Burn, Longstaff, they're local lads. They're just as desperate as the fans to get that piece of silverware that we've been craving for. So I think to Lee's point, I think it's a good one. I think it might be spot on the money. I don't agree with Lee all the time. Me and him do have a lot of differences of opinion, but I will say that it could end up being the kick up the backside we do need. There is always that moment when you go on a long unbeaten run as a club or as a team, and it's great. Obviously, you're not getting beaten, but the longer it goes, the pressure builds. The pressure builds. I mean, we've seen it in our own sport here locally. I know my team, Essendon, in 2000, they won 20 games in a row. Everyone was talking about they're going to go the whole season undefeated. They ended up losing the 21st game, and everyone thought, oh, this is the end of the world. They've stuffed their whole momentum up. It's over. They then go on and win the next 3 or 4 finals by 10 goals and win the premiership. Same thing happened 7 years later with Geelong. So it happens in sport all the time where there's that long unbeaten run. It gets broken some way or another, gets broken, and then it sort of releases the pressure, the shackles that, all right, we can breathe again. It's not a 17-game unbeaten run that we're keeping. It's not the clean sheet record we're going for. All this stuff, all this weight, if there's not already enough weight in terms of the whole of Newcastle and who are pushing for this final victory, the weight's been lifted and we can be relaxed. And I think the other thing that could be important for us that no one really has sort of talked about because he's been suspended, but Bruno's been sitting there in the stands and sitting there waiting for 3 weeks, and you saw how much it meant to him when he got sent off, how distraught he was, even in the team photo. He didn't even want to smile in the team photo after the Southampton game because he knew he was going to miss the next 3 games. But a fired up Bruno who's really our talisman. He's the difference for us in the midfield between a pedestrian solid midfield to a fantastic midfield. So here's the other secret weapon that we can unleash next week and give us that bit of impetus that hopefully can get us over the line. I know we're all craving that trophy.
Yeah, indeed. It's like everyone's got their meetups planned and everyone's heading down to London in the UK to watch it, even if they're just in a pub. I will pass my congratulations on to everyone who did manage to secure a ticket. I know there's been a lot of kerfuffle over some of the ticketing issues going on. It's not a new issue. It's new for us because we haven't been to a cup final for so long. But there's always those like hanger-ons, I guess you would say. They've always got the corporate tickets, and it's like the fact that there's like 30-odd thousand corporate tickets that are going off to either other fans or media or whoever. And you've got a lot of fans who have either been to all the games or they've got season tickets and they're missing out on the first final for God knows how long. You know, I understand the frustration. My condolences to those who didn't manage to secure a ticket, and I do feel a lot of sympathy for them, especially if they are season ticket holders. But look, congratulations to those who managed to secure their tickets for the final. Enjoy every single second of it and cheer the team on. I'm sure they'll do us proud. I fully expect us to leave everything out on the pitch. I think we'll be fired up for it. Hopefully in a good way where we're able to keep our heads and we don't have sort of moments of red mist descend because we're too fired up. Sort of back in the old Mitrovic days where he got a little bit too carried away with his enthusiasm. So yeah, look, I'm buzzing for next weekend. I'll be in Vegas watching it. I think there's a few meetups around Australia, so keep an eye on Aussie Mags and your various fan forums and Facebook pages and stuff, because it'll be nice to obviously watch it, despite the fact that it's on at stupid o'clock in the morning here. On a Sunday of all things.
Monday morning.
Monday morning. Yes, sorry. It is Sunday morning for me. It's like 8:30 kickoff over in the US, in the west coast of the US. So it'll be interesting to see anyway. So hopefully everyone can get behind the team, no matter where you're watching it, and they can do the business for us and get that long-awaited silverware off the shoulders, and the pressure can lift, and then they can just sort of go out and be free for the rest of the season. Because, you know, look, as you said, look, the pressure is going to build, and the expectations, I think, and that's kind of like the last point that I want to make is there's a big difference between a team who is scrapping and fighting to escape a relegation fight, and you know they're basically giving everything they can, and they're riding that wave of emotion from the fans and the goodwill that they're getting. They're riding that form as well, to a team where they've got the best defensive record in the league. They're unbeaten runs, breaking records. You know, they have like these ongoing sort of records of not conceding goals and stuff like that. So the expectation that builds, I think, surrounding that is potentially more than, you know, the relegation scrap. So I think the fact that, as you said, look, we've lost that game. We've lost it, you know, convincingly, but without being humiliated. We have created chances, and we've not been sort of embarrassed by it, I guess. It'll be nice to kind of, you know, go into this cup final with almost like a clean slate. So I'm sure we'll cover scores and predictions and stuff in the later week podcast that we're going to be doing. So we'll not cover that, but it's been a pleasure, Dimi. Thanks for joining. And for everyone who has been watching or listening, thanks very much. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Check out our club shop if you want to buy some merchandise with our club logos on. Help support the channel, pay for some bills for us, or at least help to. But yeah, look, we appreciate all the feedback and all the comments that we get. So please tell everyone, get them to come and have a chat to us and send through some suggestions. And we will leave it there. Thanks very much, Dimi.
Cheers, mate.
I will catch you later on in the week.